Hello, today we are going to talk about conditional statements. Conditional statements are statements that can condition something, and they are used to perform different actions based on different conditions. And well, when something like that is gonna be used. For example, when you want to validate your form, you don't know exactly what is gonna be typed there, right? You don't know if, for example, the user is gonna type the password properly the way you want. And then you can just send him an alert before he sends the form, so he will not need to refresh everything or retype everything again and other things like that. He will be just informed instantly that something is wrong, right? You can then inform him, but we can only do it because we can condition. We can check if the variable is like that, if something on your web page is like that. Of course, right now we don't know how to get things from our web page. We'll learn it later, but so right now it will be a theoretical examples, but at least you will know how these things works very good. Okay, so how to create a conditional statement? Simple one. You can type if, and then after if you have got something like parentheses, and inside it you put the condition. Okay, and for example we can use the comparison operator like that. And is 5 greater than 3? Yes, it's greater than 3, and this thing is gonna return 1, right? Because if something is true, it's gonna return 1. If something is not true, it's gonna return 0. And if the expression inside here is true, then the instruction below, one line below, is gonna be executed. If it's not true, it's not gonna be executed. So if I do something like that, as you can see, we have got here an alert. Why? Because this thing was true, and because of it, it's gonna be executed, this line of code. When we do something like that, so here we have false now, as you can see, we do not see anything. Okay, so that's the simple one. And you have to remember that any value other than 0 is true. So if you have something like that, it's gonna be executed. If you have 0, it's not gonna be executed. If you have minus value, it's gonna be executed. If you have here a string, it's gonna be also executed, okay? So let's create two variables, for example, A and B, and let's do something a bit harder. So if A is bigger than B, then I want to type A is bigger than B. I could also do something like that. So I can connect strings like that. And as you can see, 5 is bigger than 3. It's true. When we change it like that, it's not working. Of course, things like variables are not gonna, you do not want to check variables that you type here the values into it, because you know how they look like, right? But you're gonna take all these values from your website most time. And now A is bigger than B. And you can sometimes want to check also the other situation, for example, else if. So if there is another situation, do something like A is lower than B, and then we'll alert A is lower than B. 2 is lower than 3. Yeah, it's not working. So how does it work? Everything is being read from top to bottom. So here we of course define variables, and then we check if A is greater than B. It's not. So here we have got 0. So this thing is not gonna be executed. But then we check another situation. Else if A is lower than B. Yes, A is lower than B. Then we can show something like that. And we can also do something like that. Else. And this thing is gonna be executed if all other conditions were not met. So we can write something like A equals B equals B, right? Because this is the only situation right now. 2 is lower than 3. When we do, for example, 3 equals 3. Okay, so there are some things that you need to know now, because this thing might be easy. You want to close now this lesson, but do not do it, because there are some pretty important things that you need to know. Otherwise, you will make many mistakes. Look, you can do something like that. You can do just that one if. Easy. But you can connect it with the else if, and you don't need to use else. But you can also do something like that. Like that. So you can just use if and else. And you need to remember that when you have a good situation like that, if and else if, when this condition is met, this instruction will be executed, but this condition will not be checked again if you are using the else word. Let's check it out. So if I do something like 5 and we do the same condition in both cases, so you might be thinking this will be executed and this will be executed, right? No, 5 is bigger than 3 and that's all. This here, this sentence is not gonna be executed, right? If you wanted to execute something like that, you would type if again. 5 is bigger than 3, 5 is lower than 3. So you need to remember that if you want to check something in order to make, for example, your program faster, you should check the things that are the most, that have the biggest probability of happening first, because then you will see, then the instruction will be executed below it, and all other instructions, all other checks will not gonna be executed at all, right? That's very important, and you will not make a mistake like that. And there is one more thing that you need to remember. What if I did something like that? Like that, and I do something like that. What do you think will be shown? When we refresh, as you can see, we can see 2 is lower than 3 and then test. Okay, that's pretty something that you would think would happen, but what if I do something like that? You might be thinking that only this thing will be shown. As you can see, we can still here see a test. Why? Because it's here. Why? We can have here as many enters as we want. Now you might be thinking, hey, it's true that these instructions should be on run, these not. But you know, white spaces are not interpreted, right? So we need to always show exactly what we want to execute or we do not want to execute. How to execute more than one instruction at once? Well, then you have to use a sign like that. So we have to use brackets that looks like that if you want to group more than one instruction. And then when we use it inside, as you can see now, we can see only 5 is bigger than 3, and that's all. Because right now, because of that brackets, you are interpreting these two instructions as one. So if you want to run more than one instruction, you can group them, you can merge them using these brackets, curly brackets, right? Okay, so if I do now something like that, then this thing will be run. And when I do something like that, alert A equals B. And only this thing was run. So you need to remember that if you do not make brackets, only one instruction will be run. And well, you should most time just do brackets even if you are doing only one instruction. If you are at least beginner, okay? Because you have noticed probably that it could be potential problems for you. I do not make that curly brackets because when I have only single very short instruction, because I'm very experienced person in programming, right? But you might be at the beginning making some problems because of it, and it will just take you lots of time to debug code like that. So it's maybe sometimes even good idea to just do for one instruction curly braces. Okay, so that's how conditional statements works, and you know how to avoid making mistakes. That's all in that lesson. Thank you very much.